It is time for another live game of StarCraft 2, and what I got for you today is a match that I am playing at the exact same time as I'm also giving commentary to it. This is going to be a Zerg versus Zerg, and that does mean that I will have to pay close attention. So if I get quiet throughout this cast, please, keep in mind that I'm still a guy. I'm trying to do two things at once, but I'm not particularly great at that. I've been doing this for a while though, so usually it isn't all too terrible. Regardless, I'm gonna try and play a high-level Zerg versus Zerg, and that does mean that I plan on playing a macro-focused style and not necessarily cheese out my opponent right at this point in the game. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can still play high-level ZVZ if you cheese every single match, but I found it to be a lot more impressive when you can indeed play a macro-focused strategy here as well. Now, playing macro definitely does not mean that you bypass the Zergling Baneling style. For some reason, I see a bunch of people commenting on that every once in a while. If you skip out the Zerglings and Banelings in the earlier part of the game, right, you leave yourself so vulnerable just if your opponent is just simply going to take a third base really early on and drone a little bit harder than you can, because roaches are not that great at playing aggressive in the earlier part of the game. So I plan on making Zerglings and Banelings. I plan on transitioning towards roaches here eventually, and maybe even tech up to like Hydras or Mutas, depending on how the game goes. That does of course mean that I will have to survive the earlier parts of the game as well. Obviously it does take two to play a macro game, and if my opponent decides to cheese me, we're gonna have to respond accordingly. But usually if I go hatchery first, we're still in a decent position, even if we are going up against the 13-12, like the hyper aggressive Zergling speed timing attacks. Regardless though, hatch is already down, we are committed. Gas is already being gathered right now, and I'm getting myself the spawning pool right here as well. I'll have to try and get myself a very quick third hatchery out as well. Because of that, I'm actually going to be pulling the drones out of gas right now. At the very least, two of them. I'm going to leave one in there. Those will allow me to start up link speed. 2 queens. I'm going to go for 2 sets of Zerglings here as well, or maybe 1. Nah, we'll actually go for 2, just because I think it's a little bit safer. And right after this, I'm going to be getting myself the third hatchery. And the reason why I pulled the drones out of gas here for a little while is because it doesn't actually delay my my baneling nest by that much. And it allows me to get the third base out just a little bit faster, which definitely can be a rather big deal in the Zerg versus Zerg matchup. So far though, I was going to say I'm not seeing a hatch here for my opponent just yet. That means that we are going to go up here against a little bit of aggression. My opponent may actually just simply be going for a 12 pool here or something along those. No, actually, it's not a 12 pool. It's definitely a little bit too late at this point in the game for a 12 pool. Looks like though we may end up losing one of our queens, which is rather annoying. He actually ran the links all the way around. That's probably what happened there. Cheeky little move by my opponent. He's actually sending in more links as well. I actually assumed that he would be playing a macro-based follow-up here, but apparently he's not going to be doing something along those lines. That's alright though. Let's go ahead and get the baneling nest started then. And we'll have to go ahead and make ourselves another queen here as well. So while he did get the hatchery up on his side of the map, he did a little bit of damage here and there, but it wasn't really too impressive. I know that he's got links out somewhere though, I'm not entirely sure where. Okay, I was gonna say. Apparently he is gonna try and continue this aggression for a little while longer. That means that it's time for dancing! Let's see if I brought my dancing shoes here today. So far, so good. Bringing your dancing shoes in ZVZ is absolutely crucial. Alright. Looks like we're good. Let's go ahead and try and see if we can start transitioning towards another base. Got a handful of links just finishing up. And considering my opponent was being a little bit annoying here in the earlier part of the game, I think we're actually in a pretty good spot, all things considered. Yeah, 3 links there is not quite what I was hoping for, but it's alright. Third hatchery. So I'm basically just transitioning right now towards what would be my normal build, okay? Like, I'm trying to, transition to what I had planned earlier. Apparently that wasn't the most ideal setup there for me. But judging by his setup there, look, we see the Evo chamber and what is more than likely a roach warren as well going down. Yep, there we go. That means that with that spine crawler in particular as well, we know exactly what it is my opponent is planning on, because it's definitely not continued aggression here for at least another minute or 2. Now, I've got a great opportunity here to drone up. There's a good chance my opponent is gonna, however, do a push with roaches and and +1 attack or something along those lines. So I'm gonna still have to transition here myself as well towards a similar unit composition. But right now, we are at a point in the game where I can drone. Maybe I shouldn't even get the lair right now. Maybe I shouldn't even get myself the Eva Chamber and the Roach Warren just yet. It's kind of a hard call to make. But as long as I know for a fact that we're going to be playing a similar set of units, and obviously still could be going for Nidus and whatnot as well. But as long as I know for a fact that we're going to be playing similar kind of units. Ooh, a little bit of dancing once again. We're going to be able to come out ahead, right? Just because I've got a bigger economy. The power of drones is that oftentimes, even if you are behind in the units initially, if you've got a bigger income and you buy a little bit of time, you're going to get a lot more income eventually. And here we go. We do see my opponent taking that third base as well. I'm going to go ahead and make a... what's it called? An overseer, just in case. Do have 2 more gases done right now. Gonna make a round of drones here for the third base. And I think that all things considered, we've got a bigger economy right now than him. And as long as we confirm that it's not gonna be a Nidus play or, for example, a Spire, I'm gonna be pretty happy with this setup because I'm gonna be able to do a really solid timing attack here in just a little bit. Let's start up a couple of defensive Banes just in case. I don't see a Roach upgrade coming in just yet. Is there even a Lair? Lair is only just now coming in. So that means that all of a sudden we find ourselves at a massive lead. Alright, because I've got an upgrade coming in for my Roaches already. I've got a timing push here coming in as well if I want to, and I will push out across the map once Roach Speed finishes here. These upgrades are lined up to be finishing up right around the same time. At that point in the game, we are most definitely at a lead, because right now he doesn't have a third base. It's only just now finished, I think. And that means that we are going to be able to get so many more units out than he can at this point. If I want to, I could even do a Muta switch. Not maybe as strong, but definitely still a viable option. He may actually be going for a push himself though, so I'm okay with that too. Yeah, he's gonna go for a push right here. +1 attack is just finished up for him. No Roach Speed though, so that means that he's gonna have a hard time retreating. And luckily for me, I was actually already making units here for a while. So that means that I'm gonna be in a decent position to just simply clean this up. Now, I'm lacking a little bit of vision here on the left-hand side. So I'm a little worried for that positioning here, but I think he may just simply be moving back home already. There we go. He's actually already moving back home. Let's go for the +2. And I'll be making another round of drones here as soon as my next overlords finish up. Because I don't know if I can actually clean the game up right here, but I can go ahead and continue pushing up that economy lead. The power of drones is very noticeable though. It's great. I want to see how many workers he's got at that base. At this point, I don't really know. Not a lot. He's got a bunch, but not a lot. Gotta be careful though. Lots of corrosive biles. I want to push in. Okay, blew up a lot of his drones there. A little bit of an awkward little engagement here, but I wanted to push into that mineral line knowing that there were a lot of banelings in my unit composition as well. And it looks like we are cleaning this up with relative ease. Let's go ahead and start up that fourth base. Let's start up the Hydro Den as well. We can start up even Burrow upgrade at this point, as well as the Roach Tunneling Claws. Third base is now going down, and you can see the power of the workers, right? It's so noticeable. The power of workers is ridiculous. If you get yourself a bigger economy, you're just simply going to be able to come out ahead rather easily here as well. I don't even need to continue pushing right now. I can test the waters, but judging by the amount of spines there, I think we're better off if I just go back for a little bit. And just simply power out more and more units. Let's go ahead and start up the gas here in the main. Let's put some drones back into that one here as well. And you can see right now, right, the worker count is getting a little bit out of control. As long as I just simply push once +2 attack finishes up, and I transition towards the Hydra Roach-based army, I don't really see exactly what my opponent could possibly do to come back into the game. Let's actually think about that for a second. He could be going for a Nidus Worm. He could be going for a Muta play. But in all scenarios, we are going to be just fine. He's actually just deciding to retake that third base. And I mean, +2 just finished up for me. That means that I'm going to be able to push across the map here once again. My 4th base is now also done. And you can see just simply having a sheer upper hand here in workers gives you a massive lead. I'm not taking any risk this game, right? Really didn't take any risks whatsoever. But we found ourselves with a much bigger army just because of the power of drones. Even though he's got the defender's advantage right now, I'm still going to push here, knowing that I've got an economy lead. And the longer that this engagement goes on, the more and more units I'll be able to pile on into this game as well. So even though this engagement right here wasn't necessarily value one-on-one, as long as he doesn't get the 3rd base up and running, I'm going to be able to overpower him. Just about a minute or so later. And indeed, my opponent is going to be forced to GG out. So let's have a quick little look here at the replay. Let's just go back just a second. I want to go back to the very first point in this game where we first obtained that economy. What? Who's that? That is not the decal that I had in game earlier. That's a very handsome man. I don't recognize him right from the get-go, but that is not what I... There's supposed to be a Lowko logo there. Does he have it too? Nope, he doesn't have it for some odd reason. Alright. I have no clue who that is. Anyway, I noticed there was a little bit of a bug earlier today as well. In the replays of StarCraft 2. I don't really know exactly why all of a sudden this man shows up at my hatchery though. Although you're very welcome to the family, sir. Thank you for joining me with that mighty fine beard of yours. I've been trying to grow out mine for years, but it's not quite happening. Maybe when I'm like 40 years old, I'm gonna be of the age to get any kind of facial hair. But regardless, let's check out this game real quick, okay? A good way to judge Zerg versus Zerg is through the income tab. So my opponent went for a little bit of a weird build. He went for a bit of a funny little bit of aggression. I actually thought that he just simply ran the units all the way across the map and take the outer edges. Turns out my overlord was just a little bit rallied in the wrong direction and I actually got caught here with my pants off. Now notice, right? This aggression is going on. And I know that some of you may have been looking at this as like, ooh, this is not good for Lowko, right? You may have thought like this is a bad situation for me to be in. But considering he went for the early game pressure here, he sacrificed a lot of early game economy as well. Only just now is he finally starting to catch up in the worker count, but while this was all going on, I was actually ahead worker-wise, right? Now he's going to continue piling on the aggression a little bit more. I was forced to dance back and forth there between the banelings, make sure that we weren't really losing anything significant. But right now at this point in the game, you can see that I've got myself a ton of workers already. And while I lost a couple of units here and there, only really one drone went down, and we are in a decent position. Right now though, when I go for the counterattack, and I realize that my opponent is setting up with this defensive posture, it's almost a dead giveaway that I am going to be safe to draw up as heavily as I would like to. Obviously, I still need some units out on the map just in case my opponent does something wonky. But right now, I know for a fact I see the defensive banelings, we see the Roach Warren, the Spine Crawler, and the Evo Chamber. This is like the most defensive setup that you can go for if you are a Zerg player. This is great though for me, because at this point in the game, I know for a fact that I'm going to be able to draw up as heavily as I would like to. And while currently I am behind, he delayed his third base here for a long time, and I know with this setup, he's not going to be able to get it out here for a while either, just because he's going to be hanging back on an army here that's not going to be that great at taking a third base. So eventually he does grab it here, but already I am starting to push ahead here in the work account. Now, it is important that you don't, like, overdo the workers here either. But at this point, right, since I've got a third base, and I know for a fact he doesn't, I mean, he may only just now be switching into that third base, I've just simply piled on drones up to about 60 or so. That's usually a pretty good amount. And I know for a fact that I'm going to be ahead economically here. And even though it's currently, like, a couple of workers difference, it adds up very quickly. So if we go forward just a little bit into this game, right, and you can see me pushing into his base here, all this time I've been having an economy upper hand. It just simply means that if I'm able to establish a bigger, a bigger economy, I'm going to be able to get a much bigger army later on into this game as well. So the earlier you can get workers out, and the faster you can finish them up, and the longer you can have that economy advantage for, the bigger your eventual army will become as well. And it makes a lot of sense when you think about it like that, but I still see a lot of people just simply trying to close out the game early and then getting upset when they don't manage to, and then they eventually just lose because they don't have that economical upper hand. I feel like it's the much better way to play defensive most of the time. I mean, you can still play aggressive as well, obviously, from time to time, but at the very least be capable of playing defensive to learn how to understand this macro mechanic of playing Zerg versus Zerg, right? Because right now, for example, I could have continued pushing, and I see a lot of people doing that as well, and sure, there was a chance that I could close it out. But I would have been fighting on top of queens and spine crawlers with an army that was about as big as his. Whereas if I sit back right now, right, and I get that massive economical lead, it's just a much safer option. I mean, I believe it was Artosis who once said, when you're ahead, get more ahead. Sure, you can sometimes close out the game, and if you're smelling blood, it may be useful to push for the victory. But oftentimes, if you are ahead and you're not entirely sure if you can actually win the game right then and there, it's better to try to push more ahead, right? Because that means that you are taking a calculated decision. You know, when in, like, for example, in poker, right? When you're going all in with for example, king, right? Pre-flop. And you're going up against someone who's got, like, ace-king, right? Generally speaking, you should be able to be barely ahead pre-flop, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you win. But if it's a calculated decision that wins you a game, and maybe, I would say 60% or so of the time, you're gonna be able to come out ahead eventually, as long as you keep pushing that advantage. Now, obviously, it's not the best example, because in StarCraft 2 you have quite a lot more guarantees and not nearly as much randomness. But what I'm basically trying to say is that if you are making calculated decisions and you're pushing for victories eventually, rather than trying to close it out as early as possible, and you're taking those guaranteed advantages, oftentimes you will find yourself just simply absolutely overpowering your opponent if you're simply playing patient and you're pushing for the victory a little while later into the game. And in this particular situation, I mean, I established 4 bases. My opponent was essentially stuck on 2. I've got Hydra Ling and, or rather, I've got Roach Hydra here, and while my opponent's got the same, I just simply have so much more stuff just because of that economical advantage here that I established minutes earlier. And because of that, I ended up obtaining the victory here. So I hope this game explained to you a little bit better on how to play Zerg vs Zerg efficiently. If you got any questions, feel free to leave them down below in the comment section of this video. I always try to answer as many as I possibly can. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day, okay? Do not forget to smile, and I'll see you in the next one.